Hey guys, Joe here. If you can tell from the background, I am not in anything resembling anything of my own space. I'm up in Connecticut at my parents' house, so this is going to be a one take. This is actually the 34th time I've done this, so you may hear my voice start coming and going as we do this. However, I needed to do a video and I wanted it to be on tech, and today I wanted it to be on obscure tech because obscure tech is kind of fun to revisit it and see where they failed and where they succeeded. And for HP, the 9.7-inch HP Touch was both at the exact same time, and we will get into that. February 9th, 2011, HP announces that they're going to be releasing a expensive tablet. A little bit after that, the iPad 2 launched, and that's an expensive tablet. So of course, CNET, all the reviewers at the time, any magazine publication, they immediately started comparing spec to spec, part to part, things like that, to see if it was going to have the stones to keep up with Apple. And don't get me wrong, Apple makes an amazing product, but they're a little bit on the higher end. So HP thought they could kind of sneak into that market a little bit and price their tablet up there, which was their first big mistake. It released July 1st of 2011. It was discontinued 49 days later on August 18th of 2011. That is ridiculously short for a product of this price point from a manufacturer such as HP. Unfortunately, because of the pre-sale speculations, it drove sales down the toilet. They sold like 20,000 units in that 49 days, so not very many when you're expecting them to sell hundreds of thousands. So yeah, it really was HP's fault for doing what they did. Let me tell you what the specs are, and we will talk a little bit about how they match up to the iPad. And for the record, I think the iPad is an incredible piece of technology. It really led the industry and this segment, and for while it was the top dog, it was untouchable. So let me just get that out of the way. I'm not a shill for any individual Windows, Android, Apple thing, but I do believe that the Apple iPad of its generation was the best possible product. Anyways, the HP Touchsmart was available in 3 flavors. You had a 16 gigabyte model, which was $499, so expensive. A 32 gigabyte model, such as this one, which was $599, and that puts it kind of getting into that iPad 2 category. And then they had a 64 gigabyte model. Personally, I've never even seen one in person. It is a white version, and it had a faster processor, and again, 64 gigs of internal storage. That one was, I believe, $700, and that pretty much poked the iPad right in the eye in terms of being in its price range. For the processor, the 16 and the 32 gigabyte models had 1.2 gigahertz Qualcomm Snapdragon processors, dual core processors, so decent, not a quad core processor. We're talking 2011 here. Come on, get your head out of your butt. And they came with 1 gigabyte of DDR2 RAM, mobile RAM. The white 64 gig model had a 1.5 gigahertz processor, otherwise it was pretty much the same. It has a 9.7 inch diagonal screen, as well as what Qualcomm called their Adreno 220 core graphics, so not terrible for the time. That would have been okay because it actually has Gorilla Glass, much like the iPad at the time. The display is very nice on these. It's a 1396 by 768 display, and it's very easy to read, very good viewing angles. I don't know why I keep on half holding it, but as you can see, great viewing angles. It doesn't really disappear on you. The sound is decent. However, I usually use headphones with tablets or phones or anything of that nature, so I like that. The downside, of course, just like Apple, is no SD card slot, so you couldn't add any additional storage, so you were pretty much stuck with what you had. When these were first released, they were using WebOS, which was basically based off the old Palm Pilot software, and not as good as the Apple, of course, and even behind Android at the time, which was like 2.1 or 2.2. Later on, a company or a person who had a program called CyanogenMod, which is actually on this one, because as you can see, this is an Android environment, started releasing patches to run Android on your HP, and in fact, Android gave code to CyanogenMod so that he could make it work better. I guess it was an easier way to do it versus trying to force them onto a system like this. Over time, it's been upgraded and upgraded. This one runs 4.44, and I could theoretically run 7.11 on it. I'm not going to do that for now because this works fine for what I use it for. Where this was a huge success for HP, despite selling only a couple of dozen thousand units, is what happened after the discontinuation. After they discontinued this, all the retailers, Best Buy and whatnot, said, we don't want them. Stop sending them to us. Don't give them to us. Barnes & Noble even carried these. They said, no, please don't send us anymore. Then they had what is referred to in the industry as a fire sale. They dumped these basically below cost. Must have been subsidized a little bit by HP for their other products. But the 16 gigabyte model was selling for $99, which in 2011 money for the equipment, Gorilla Glass and all that stuff, was unheard of. And the 32 gigabyte models, such as this one, were selling for $149. That's when my dad bought his first one, and this is his second one. The first one lasted all the way until 2016 when he broke it, and I got him another one. However, there was such a demand, they sold 1 million units before the end of 2011. And in fact, the HP Touchsmart, even though it was discontinued after 49 days, was the second best-selling tablet in the United States in 2011, behind only the iPad. There was so much demand, in fact, that they brought it back in 2012 for a short run using extra parts they had laying around in order to recoup some of their money. And they re-released it as a slightly more expensive than the fire sale price. A 16 gigabyte model was $249, a 32 gigabyte model was $299. Now, if you can find one like I did for 39 bucks shipped, you're doing pretty good because, again, with good viewing angles as well as a somewhat decent processor, if you don't try to overload it with graphics and things like that, it's a perfectly serviceable tablet that you can use for watching YouTube, Netflix. You can handle your banking, you can web search with it. It works fine. The battery life is not as good as an iPad, of course. It's a 6,000 milliamp battery, which supposedly would give it 9 hours of time. However, it's been about an hour and I've lost 13%. So if you do the math, it's probably closer to like 6.5 hours. A cool piece that you could buy with it was the Bluetooth keyboard, and it was one of only 2 accessories that were released, the other one being a capacitive pen, because it is a multi-touch capacitive display, so that's pretty cool. The keyboard, it feels pretty good, and because of where the batteries go in, it actually makes it kind of sit up just a touch, and it feels decent. The keys are close to full size. It almost feels like a Mac style keyboard, and it actually has shortcut buttons on this top row that handle things like screen brightness, powering it on and off, volume control, things like that, activating the search on the system. So it was pretty convenient. What does that mean nowadays? Not much. You can get tablets really cheap nowadays that are faster than this, of course, but that's where this also stands out. Because the price was so low, even the re-released model, it started a trend where you could start getting lower and lower priced tablets. The Slate 7, which came out, was only a few $100, but way more powerful than this and had better graphics, and it was a nicer tablet to use. And nowadays you can get tablets for 49 bucks. You can get $100 tablets that run Windows 10, for Christ's sakes. So HP inadvertently created a subsegment by failing miserably and succeeding at the same time. So, yay, HP! That's about it. If you have any comments, leave them down below. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Please feel free to subscribe. You'll have to look down for the link. Again, I'm not using a computer to film this, so I can't add my little face and all that other stuff. And I did start a Patreon page. If you'd like to contribute, that would be awesome. It'll allow me to buy things to do on the channel, such as doing some computer builds. I have a couple of builds in mind that I would really like to do, including why the hell do you think you have to spend $1,000 to build a competent gaming machine, which is one of the next ones I'd like to do. So yeah, other than that, I will, as always, talk to you later.